Hello, hello, hello. Hey, everybody. It is me, Jamie Radiance Moorhead, your favorite Christian life coach. And today we are here for I Wasn't Taught to Be a Wife podcast, live edition with a Christian sexpert. So I am super excited. Our title today for the evening is From Roommates to Soulmates. And so we decided to do this impromptu live because we have this beautiful holiday coming up. You know, the holiday that everybody loves. That was pun intended. In meeting her, she's going to be able to give us some pointers on how to conduct this holiday properly as a Christian, whether married or single. So I am going to bring Angela in, which I'm super excited about. Hey, Angela, how are you doing this evening? Oh, you froze.
Oh no. I think
Okay,
I'm back.
okay. How are you doing this evening?
I am great. How are you?
I am good. I'm good. I'm super grateful to have you this evening. Looking forward all the wisdom that you are going to bestow upon the audience. And so I wanted you to take a quick moment to introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Angela. I'm the Christian sexpert. I talk all about sex and intimacy in Christian marriage. I am a sex and intimacy coach, influencer, and public speaker. I have spoken at events like Women Evolve with Sarah Jakes Roberts, and I'm working on my first book. And I want to say happy Valentine's Day to all of the people that are watching. Erin said happy Valentine's Day, so thanks for joining us. And I'm super excited to chat about all of the things that you have for us tonight.
I'm excited too. I can't wait because so you said you've done Sarah Jacobs event. How was that? What was that like for you?
The honestly, like aside from obviously like having my sign, probably the coolest thing I've ever done in my entire life, because I got a stadium of 40,000 women to scream orgasm
Oh wow,
and clitoris, and you know,
that
it
would
was
have took a
amazing.
lot for me to do. Like I'm gonna be honest. Like I'd have been like this. I don't know if I can do that. So
My my I took my husband and my best friend with me, and they
okay.
were my bestie was running around playing my like PR manager, recording everything, and my husband was sitting in a seat, and he's like, Angela, the women were like sliding out of their seats and like landing on the floor when you were talking. I was like, welcome to Black Church, baby. Welcome to Black Church.
we I was like, I don't, you gotta hold yourself. I'm surprised they weren't holding themselves and sliding out
Oh,
the
they were.
chair. Do you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, there was. I could only see the first few rows because,
Mhm.
like, it's just we were in a baseball stadium, right? So
Okay.
it was huge, and I could only see the first few rows, and after that, it's just
Yeah.
a sea of humanity. So there were definitely some church aunties that were doing the whole, oh Lord Jesus, I don't like looking at each other, doing that, the very stereotypical church auntie reaction. Um, but then there were other like there was this one woman that was like, I don't know, maybe like 7 or 8 rows back, and I could see her because she kept standing up while I was talking, like, yes, yes. So
she,
I was like, yes, you are my
she
people.
yeah, she was like, "Sing, baby, sing." Like,
Yes,
when
yes.
you singing real good,
Oh,
you
yeah.
touching their heart.
Yes,
That's what was happening.
yes. Yeah. My poor husband, just surrounded by 40,000 women who were having all of these mixed emotions about a woman getting on stage and saying clitoris and orgasm and, pleasure and all of these things. And he's just like, I'm just here for the vibes. No double entendre intended.
I'm here for
And
the
my husband,
vibes.
my husband is the whitest white middle-aged man that you like. He is a walking stereotype. This poor man is he's just the whitest white man. And sometimes like even I will just look at him and I'm like, do you know
Oh,
a
you
little less
froze.
middle-aged white? Oh no. Am I back?
You are back.
Okay. This poor man. Sometimes I just stop and I look at him. I'm like, can you be a little less middle-aged white man right now? And he's like, no, I can't. I am a middle-aged white man. And I'm like, but it's so painful for me sometimes. So he had a whole experience unto himself at the event.
Yeah,
Um
and it probably
so
was very eye-opening for him, right? It was very
oh yeah.
new. It was like, "Oh, this is how okay. Alright, so"
So his growing up, his grandfather was a pastor, so he definitely had been to black churches some,
Mhm,
but I think they were probably more reserved
right.
than
Yeah, there
the, because of the denomination that he was raised in. So he had always like he's always said, "Oh, I love going to black churches," and I think that this was just a new level, like a new level
yeah.
unlocked for him. Um,
So I guess my question is how did you get into this field? Like, what before we, like, start asking
yeah.
questions and getting, like, all the tea on what this is and how this works, how did you get into this field? Because it sounds like your husband is reserved. He's reserved, right? Like, am I wrong to
Um,
say that?
no,
Or to an extent?
so it's not that he's reserved, it's that he is he's not reserved. He is just naive
Oh,
in a way.
okay,
Like
okay.
um he was raised in a Baptist adjacent denomination,
Yeah,
but but also like his grandparents were oddly open about sex. Like,
really?
yes. So I distinctly remember when we were engaged, we were sitting around talking with his grandparents, and his, like 60 some 70-year-old grandmother says, just because there's snow on the roof doesn't mean there's not fire in the kitchen.
Mm,
Or
what does that mean?
just because I have white hair doesn't mean I'm not throwing down with Grandpa Joe every single night.
Oh, no. I would have not been able to handle Wait a minute. Okay,
Right?
hold on.
So imagine you've got this 5 foot nothing Baptist adjacent little old white woman telling you just because there's snow on the roof doesn't mean that there's that fire
Like,
in the kitchen. And
I
you're just
am
like, what do I do with that? What does one do with that?
yeah,
So it's not that my husband is like reserved or anything about sex. It's just he wasn't he was he was his family are kind of hillbillies, and so that's kind of all he was exposed to. So he doesn't
mm,
he gets a lot of an education being married to me. So so
understood.
how I got into this is um a million years ago when I was going to college, good girls from small towns didn't go to school to become sex coaches or anything like that. Good girls from small
Mhm,
towns went to school to get their MRS degree. Being a
mhm,
good girl from a small town, I went to college. I graduated with my bachelor's in religion and psychology, and a few short weeks later, got my MRS, which, if you are unfamiliar with small Christian esque colleges, the MRS uses you get married. So I remained fascinated with human sexuality, though, and continued to study everything that I could get my hands on. Eventually, after I had my son, I joined an international online women's ministry. And I was continually brought into the conversations about sex and marriage because of my expertise on the subject. I was eventually asked to join the leadership. And I was like, you know what, when my son doesn't need me so much anymore, I want to do this full time. I see the damage that purity culture has done. I know that God wants us to have abundance in all areas of our lives, and that includes our
Mhm.
sex life. I want to help women have better marriages. And it was kind of the end of the conversation. Well, a few months later, something else came up in the ministry again, and somebody was like, Angela, that should be your TikTok handle, is the Christian Sexpert. And I was like,
Mm.
okay. But I ran over and I reserved the name, and I was like, maybe I'll do something with it someday. I've got the name now. And one of the girls was like, to really make it on TikTok, you have to post 4 times a day. And I was like, excuse me, that's intense. But I have raging untreated ADHD. And so I was like, that sounds like fun. I'm gonna start doing that. And so I started posting
Okay.
consistently. And I started my account in late January. I had gone viral by Easter with a video at over 5 million views.
What?
And
Like
right at
last
the
year or this? Like last year, right?
so this
2
I'm
years ago.
on year 3.
Okay.
I'm on year 3. So from the beginning, when I started the channel, God was like, "Hey, remember how you said that you want this was like a someday dream?" Yeah, it's not a
Oh, you froze.
dear life, because we're gonna like it's gonna blow up, and you need to hang on, and because it's gonna take off. So I started, just with the TikTok channel, and I added downloadable products that you can get from my website to help the
Mhm.
sexual and non-sexual intimacy in your marriage. I started offering private coaching, and then I started doing podcasts. And then one day I got an email in a DM from somebody that was like, "Hey, I'm from Pastor Sarah Jake's Roberts team. She wants to have you on her podcast." And I was like, "I get it, sure,
You're like, "Sure,
yeah."
what?"
I thought I was being punked. And they were like, "Yeah, like when can we schedule this?" I was like, "What? What?
I'm not being punked. I'm just not being punked.
Okay." um, it's like literally everything has just been like, "Oh, I guess it's more serious now. Oh, I guess it's more serious now." Like last year, they emailed me after I'd been on the podcast. They were like, "Hey, Pastor Sarah wants to invite you to speak at Women Evolve." And I was like, yeah, what? Um, and at that time, like right after I got the invitation, they were like, we wanted to know if you'd be interested. Like, what am I going to say? No.
Yeah, but like it's
Yeah, yeah, I'm interested. Okay.
of course.
But right after that, God was like, "Hey, you need to start writing your book because you're going to need a manuscript ready for after the conference." And I was like, "Okay." I'm
You
just
will.
hanging on for dear life at this point. Um, like I don't know. I look like a like I look like your librarian at your local library that is single and has 17 cats, and I'm out here on the internet talking about vibrators and praying against your gag reflex, okay? And but the things just keep happening, and so
I am
I just
eternally
keep saying,
shocked just
"Okay, God,
now. You just threw me off. You said
wait."
you can't talk about that though. Like what? Did you talk about that at the event?
What, vibrators are praying against your gag reflex?
Both of that, like both of those things. Did you say?
Okay, so I mean, I talked about multiple orgasms at Woman Evolve.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, some grandmas had strokes and heart attacks. That's really what happened. There's no way.
Yeah,
No.
because no, so I said, like, actually, if you go and look at some of the comments from the event, you will see, because it was a thing, because I told them that women are the multi-orgasmic creatures. We are capable of more than one orgasm. So
But you
you
said
should be
that
having
on a stage at
in front
the
of
church
40,000
event.
women. Yeah. In front of Sarah Jakes Roberts and Pastor Ture, and
How did
the whole
that
family was there. The
the
whole
whole
family was
fam
there.
was there?
Yeah, I was sitting just a couple rows back from Pastor TD Jakes.
I'm holding myself right now. Like you see what I'm saying? I'm not
Look, girl, God
I,
wants us to have abundance in all areas of our lives. And if you're not having multiple orgasms, what are you even doing with your life?
this is so different.
At this point, I don't know if it's the computer glitching or your brain.
Yeah, all of it. All of it's happening at the same time. I mean, like, like I don't I okay. All right.
Okay, look, I can see that there are some people watching, at least on Facebook. So y'all need to start chiming in with the comments while,
Cuz like
while
wait, oh,
Jamie
I think
gets
they
her brain
did.
together.
Oh, somebody said happy Valentine. Hold
Yes.
on. I see that.
I
Look.
have it I have it pulled up on my phone so that I can see if
Okay.
anything happens over here. But y'all need to jump in with some questions or something because poor Jamie
Yeah.
is just speechless
I
over
don't know.
here.
I've never, cuz I I'm sorry.
Okay, so we've established that multiple orgasms is a new concept for Jamie. Women
Not that.
are
No, it's just
okay.
having that discussion. Like, so I'm thinking even when I was younger, I don't remember the sex talk. Do you see what I'm saying? So
Oh yeah.
like, and so being older, like I don't even talk about type of things like with my girlfriends or nothing like that either. So it's just interesting right here in my mind is definitely like you know? And I would have had the same reaction even before getting saved because I was like it was just to me uh, in our community really is like whether you are or not is just something that's not talked about. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm like,
Oh, I know. Yeah. My version of the sex talk was my mother handing me a book and walking away. That was the
"Oh,
extent of it.
so what like why were you fascinated with it? Was it because of the lack of education that you received or was like you're just like I'm just fascinated with this topic?"
I think that okay, so we know that the Bible says that God gives certain gifts to certain people and that,
Yeah.
every gift is given for a reason. And I do think that we have gifts that are named, right? To some, he gives the gift of prophecy. To some, he gives the gift of interpretation. To some, he gives the gift of intercession, right? And we have named gifts in the Bible, but I think that there are other gifts that are not named in the Bible. And I think
Mm.
and we know that teacher is what like a specialty attached to it because like what are you teaching, right? So like like we know that there's guys who went to high school in the 70s whose lives were changed by their high school mechanics teacher, right? Like
Mhm.
they would be like, yeah, that guy had the gift for teaching. But
Mhm.
so when like the Bible talks about like a gift of teaching, it's not talking about like a specific specialty. And
Right,
so
it just
I
says
just
teaching.
Right, it just says teacher. So I think, and within that, like we can specialize. And me specializing in sex and talking about it is a spiritual gift. It's because this has always been. I have always people when I got to Women Evolve, we went to the wrong hotel at first because I was overwhelmed and I like had gone to the wrong hotel. And so I'm wandering around the lobby of this hotel trying to like figure out where I'm supposed to go because I was supposed to meet like the team because I'm like the speaker,
Mhm.
right? I'm a speaker, so like they're supposed to have all of my PR stuff and my VIP badge and all
Right.
this stuff. And so like I see someone with a conference badge. I'm like, oh hey, are you with Women Evolve? Thinking I'm asking, are you an employee? And the girl like
Mhm.
thinks that I'm just like asking if she's like attending. And she's like, yeah, like, oh, like it's gonna be so cool. Like I'm so excited. I was here last year. She's like, oh my gosh, I saw you on Instagram. you're like the Christian sexpert. I'm like, yeah. And she's like, oh, so like, is it okay to masturbate? And I'm like, hi, how are you? I just met you 2 seconds ago. But this is like always been my life is like people will just randomly start talking about, like, even before this was my job, somehow the conversation would start talking about sex. Um, yeah,
Really?
it's a little weird. And now that people like recognize me from the internet and like
Mhm.
know that this is my job, literally strangers walk up to me and they're like, is it a sin to masturbate? Or like stuff. And I'm like, hi.
Like in
In
public, they
public,
asked
like
that?
I
They
was
just
standing in the middle of a 5-star hotel in Dallas, and this girl walks up to me. She's like, "Hey, so is it a sin to masturbate?" And I'm like, hi, how are you?
"Hi, my name is
Yeah,
my name's Angela. Nice to meet
yeah,
you in person."
right.
Oh my god. Oh, that is so crazy. So, okay. So you have blessed us by coming on here, right? And so I have questions. They're not deep questions like that. I think personally
Look,
that they need to, huh?
everybody,
If they have that question, they need to reach out to you.
yeah,
Because,
but like,
but introduce yourself first, you guys. Don't just inbox her and say what. Seriously, introduce yourself.
look,
Be friendly.
girl, that is not even the that is like that question at this point in my career is literally nothing. It's the what it's oh
Really?
god. Oh my gosh. Yes. Like the questions I get from from like the anonymous questions that I get, I can't, some of them I like literally can't answer on my public channels. But things like last week it was, my husband enjoys cross-dressing. Um like is this a problem?
What?
Um I've had
Cross dressing.
likes.
You froze.
Oh, am I back? Am I back?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, you're back.
Um we're having an ice storm here, so I'm wondering if that's interfering with my internet.
Probably so.
But I've had people just DM me and they're like, "Hey, so like my husband wants me to put my finger in his peach."
What? You have the like people really ask that out loud? Like they ask it they actually like they type it like
Yeah.
this
Oh,
and then they hit send. They
that's
send
like the
it.
least of the oh, there are so many things. I get asked all the things.
Do you have nightmares?
I so I do, but not because of those questions. There is, I don't want anyone to feel any shame in coming. I would rather that you come to me and ask those questions, because that's the whole point of what I do, is because there's no one else.
Right.
There is no one else
No, there
talking
isn't.
about these things. And there's no, and if there
No.
is, it's usually um if there is other Christians talking about these, they're very sort of what I call like women's tea party Christians, where
What
it's, like,
what is that?
so think about any women's conference that you've ever gone to where it's the same two sermons over and over again, right? It's either Ruth and Naomi, or it's Esther, and
Mhm,
how
mhm.
beautiful she was.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. And
yeah.
how self-care is so important, right? That's like,
Mhm.
it's all surface level. It's all it's all surface
Right.
level, right? It's not
Right.
it's
Right.
And so if there is anyone else, any other Christians out there talking about sex, the majority of them are very tea party Christian, like women's tea party Christians, where it's like, sex is really important and you can spice it up by wearing lingerie. I'm like,
Look, I
yeah,
I don't know.
Lingerie.
I don't know if I was ready because
Lingerie is
your level of sarcasm is
so
like really I love it. Like I'm trying not to laugh as much as I want to, but I mean you're not lying at all.
lingerie
You're
is
for sure.
so spicy. That will definitely spice things up.
Oh, you froze again.
So,
Okay. So okay, I'm gonna ask a question now. I appreciate this intro and I do appreciate that people have somebody that they can ask those questions to. It's just interesting. Um it's not interesting. I mean, we know that because people get saved, but that doesn't mean that they know what is right and what is wrong, right? And so when they get in a situation, they're like, "Is can I? What is this? Like, is this allowed? Like, And so it's kind of it's kind of interesting that we don't have this dialogue, so people are not in a state of confusion behind closed doors. You know what I'm saying? So, but I mean, it's just interesting because like to type it and then hit send, that like they like oh
and to know that I could possibly turn that into an anonymous video, like where I talk about it on my public socials. And I'm glad, like,
yeah that
I want people to come to me and ask those questions. One, because it gives me all kinds of content that I can make, but two, because the Bible says my people perish for lack of knowledge.
yeah
And
they do.
educated.
Oh, he froze
Oh,
again.
I'm sorry. I think I'm probably back.
Hold on.
Okay.
Okay, you're
Okay.
back.
And we need to learn about these things. We need to be educated about these things, and we need to know how to do things safely. So if you are wanting to
Right.
do something spicier than wear lingerie to bed, you need to know how to do it safely. And that's what I do. I have created a space where people can learn to do things safely, where they can ask questions about, is this okay? And if it is, how do I do it? How do I do it safely to keep both myself and my spouse
Right.
safe? And those are, and
Right.
to go back to your question about, do I have nightmares? No, I don't have nightmares about those questions. The ones that
Okay.
the nightmares I have are my clients who tell me my husband woke me up having sex with me and I didn't want to be having sex. My husband raped me.
Oh, wow.
Those, or if I don't give him sex on a regular basis, he is mean to the children and he slams doors, and I have to protect them from his anger because he doesn't get sex.
Mm, that is like
Leave me having to go to my team and saying, guys, it was a really bad one tonight. Like, I need support. Um,
yeah.
those are the ones that give me the nightmares. Like, can I
Mm,
touch my husband's butt? Like, ask me that all day long, please, please,
no,
all day, every day.
no. Okay.
I will. I would
Alright.
rather talk about that all day than.
I, I'm gonna, I'm gonna ask the first question. That tickles me so much. I'm so sorry. It just does. Like, I am definitely. I wouldn't say I'm just not used to that conversation. So it's like this is I am. I'm just not used to it. I'm just really not, and that's okay. Because that's why you're here, so that I mean, there could be a level of comfort. That is so funny. You said ask me that all day long, but
Yeah,
don't tell me the other.
but like the
So
other is necessary too, but the other
mhm.
is more emotionally taxing.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I understand. So I thank you for that honesty. When I asked you that, I didn't think that you really did have them, but I do understand if you're getting those type of messages, yeah, for sure, because you can visualize that happening. You know what I'm saying? And so that does mess with your psyche for sure. And you wonder, you pray for the person too, because that's like very violating. So I don't
Well, and those are the moments where, like, I go to God and I'm like, I just wanted to get on the internet and talk about vibrators. I didn't want to talk about women's husbands raping them. Like, why,
It's a part of
like, that's like a Jonah moment for me. It's like me and God
yeah.
having this conversation. Like, I really just wanted to talk about vibrators. I don't want to do this other work. And God's like, but I do.
You're like, I don't want to talk about the
I
other.
don't want to.
I just want to talk about this, but it comes with it,
Yeah, it
right? You
does.
get either get all or
Right.
nothing.
And that,
So you can't.
and that's what God says. God's like, look, you got to do this part too. You have
Yeah.
to teach women how to get safe. Like, he's like, my heart is grieved for the state of our church with how women are being abused with scripture, and part of your job is to call that out. And so if you want to get on the internet and talk about vibrators, you got to do this other thing too. And I'm like, fine,
Oh
but
my
it's stupid.
gosh. Oh my god. Okay.
Look, when
So
when the Bible says that we pray about all things, we pray about all things. So
right.
the conversations that God and I have are very much, like, okay, God, today I come to you because I'm mad that I have to talk about consent when really I just want to talk about vibrators. And also, I pray for stamina to run the race. And I pray against my gag reflex. And Lord, I pray for the needs of my youth. Amen.
Angela. Amen. 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 That's
Are these not the things that you
I,
pray about? I mean, what do
no.
you pray about?
No. I pray about like all kinds of other things that have nothing to do with anything that you just said. Like I just never in my prayer. None of that. None of that has ever been there. Ever. Like seriously. I'm not even being funny. I am for real. Like I have never. Like I've never I
Okay,
don't
well,
it's not even crossed it hasn't even crossed like this is the mind. The mind it doesn't even
okay, so then I suggest that you pray, Lord, I pray that I am filled again to overflowing with my husband.
mm,
I pray
interesting.
that his tongue would not grow weary in doing its good work.
Girl bye. Okay, so the question that I have the question that I have oh hold on. Okay, Lord. Oh, I wasn't ready. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. You yeah, you
In my
know,
librarian cardigan.
like I just wasn't ready. We both have Liberian cardigans on right now. You know that, right? And I just wasn't okay. So my first question to stay on task. First question is many couples feel like they become roommates instead of lovers. How does this happen? And what are the first steps to breaking the
It
cycle?
happens because life happens. Our brains are designed to look for the path of least resistance. Because
Mm,
if you think about it, our brains are computers, they require energy. And
hmm
when our brains have to use more energy, they need more fuel. So they're always looking for like the optimized path. So it's the path of least resistance. And so the path of least resistance is they're here, like my husband's here, everything is fine, right?
Okay.
It's not looking for your brain doesn't want to exert any more effort than it needs to keep things running at status quo. And that's how the roommate phase happens, is because both of your
Mm,
brains are looking to expend the least amount of energy necessary to keep things running. And that's not
mm,
any sort of dig at either person. It is
right.
a um it, it's just a fact of human existence. and it happens in every area of your life. Like when you go to work, are you looking for the easiest way to do your job, or are you looking to go above and beyond every day? When I was working for somebody else, I was not looking to expend extra effort at any point,
Mm.
right?
Right.
Because
Right.
that's just how our brains are. So that's how the roommate phase happens. And so it depends on sort of like what flavor your roommate phase is taking. But if you are
Mm.
feeling like your roommate phase is particularly impacting your bedroom, I have a course that is called Finding Your Fire. And it's all about reigniting everything in the bedroom. Because not only do
Interesting.
our brains look for the path of least resistance in our marriage, in our lives, and parenting, but also in the bedroom, right? So if we know that we can get him from A to Z in
Mm-hmm.
doing doing actions 1, 4, and 5, you
Okay.
understand that reference, then you have watched Friends. If we know that our brains can do that,
Mm-hmm.
1, 4, 7, 4, 7, 7, 7, right? So if we like, our brains are going to do that every time.
Girl. Right.
And so finding your fire is all about, all right, we're going to take 7 off the table and we're going to figure out
Mm-hmm.
what the other numbers are, because I've been married for over 20 years. I am not the same person that my husband married 20 years ago. My body does not move in the same way that it did 20 years ago. I
Mm.
truly need to pray for the knees of my youth. And so what the things that I enjoyed 20 years ago don't necessarily apply today. So we have to be constantly curious and figure out, how do we understand who this person is, because they're not the same person that I stood next to 20 years ago.
That's true. That's true. My knees are not the same. So like I went to pick up something and there was like pop, pop, snapple, crack, pop, and I said, "Wow, like those noises have never transpired in that one knee
No.
before." I'm not sure what that was. Um
There was one time that I threw out my rib folding a sheet, and I went to my chiropractor,
Girl, bye.
and I went to my chiropractor and I was like, "What is my life?" I was folding a sheet.
We definitely don't have mega knees.
No,
Definitely don't have
no.
them.
My friend Joy,
Don't know.
my friend Joy, literally, she says that I pray for Megan Thee Stallion's knees.
No. No.
That's what she does. That's what she prays.
Wait. Let me know if that works, okay? Because I just need him to do the squats like for the workout. So if that happens, like let me know. Let me know. That is so funny. I pray for Megan the Stallion knees. I want to know if God answered that prayer. Just let me. I'm gonna no, seriously. So, all right, so you talked about how the roommate type thing happens. You do have a program to help that. We
Yes.
want to eliminate step 7, right? And so, if this leads into the next question, what are some practical daily habits that married couples can implement to rebuild emotional and physical intimacy? And if you want to define intimacy before you answer that, because I don't think people really know what that means.
Yes.
Uh, okay.
So if you break down the word intimacy, intimacy is really into me, you see.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a deep knowing of the other person, or allowing yourself to be known and seen at a soul deep level. And people
Okay.
are fine. We're like, yeah, I want to know my spouse. But then it's like, oh, well, they have to know you too. That's when people are like, oh, I don't know about that. Right.
Right. Oh, you're
To see
froze
that we
again.
can
Don't say anything yet.
Oh, am I back?
There you go.
Okay, cool. So there's actually 13 types of intimacy that we can experience in marriage, and sex is only one of them. And
13?
yes,
That's a
it
lot.
is. And the thing is, too many marriages try to rely on sex to create and maintain the intimacy in the marriage, and you can't do that. When you rely on sex to try and create and maintain intimacy in your marriage, you are building your house on shifting sand. It's like
Mm.
you need all of the intimacies to build a house. You can build a structure out of just bricks, right? But the first time there's a
Mhm.
storm, it's going to come tumbling down because there's no mortar holding it together. I'm not going to want to
Mm.
sleep in it because I don't do anything without indoor plumbing. I am an indoor cat. I require indoor plumbing. And so if it's a structure of just bricks and you're assuming you are using sex as the bricks of this structure,
Mhm.
it's going to get knocked down the first time that there's a storm. And so you need the other
Mm.
12 intimacies to build a firm foundation for your marriage. And so sex is supposed to be established before you've ever reached the bedroom. And when you frame intimacy in that sort of light, then you can start looking at rebuilding or building for the first time emotional intimacy. Emotional intimacy is all about allowing your spouse to have an emotion without you feeling personally threatened by it. There's a lot
Mm.
of people who think that if their spouse is experiencing some emotion, they need to fix it. They need to be responsible for it somehow. They perceive their spouse experiencing an emotion as some sort of attack on them, and
Mm.
it's very often may have nothing to do with you. And when you take it personally, you are showing your spouse that you are not a safe person to hold their emotions. And so, if you can just be a neutral space for them to experience the emotion without you trying to fix it or solve it or be threatened by it, then you really start to do the work of emotional intimacy.
So let's talk about like emotional intimacy. Intimacy. So say your spouse is doing that with you for the first time, and at the same time of they doing it, they kind of reject you. So like for instance, um like the person asks you if you're okay and you say yes, but then you have an emotional breakdown and you say at the same time after that, don't do that again. You don't necessarily mean don't do that again, but it was very uncomfortable. And so in that moment, I'm like, that's too much, right? Like, so I'm saying, like, there isn't there, what would you tell a couple or a married couple that's trying to be able to be emotional with each other? Would you say that there's sometimes rejection in that? Um, by either or, like because the person that's actually doing that vulnerable moment may be uncomfortable. Am I like phrasing this question right? Like when you're not so comfortable with your emotions, and you're doing it for the first time, you may reject the person trying to be receiving it without feeling attacked. Does that make sense? Like or maybe you've done it right. What's the proper way to express your emotions and not offend your partner? How about that? How about that?
I think a good rule of thumb is to always to try to meet your spouse with curiosity. And so um asking them, hey, so you said I heard you say XYZ. Is that what you
Mhm.
intended to convey? And giving them the opportunity to say, oh no, I didn't mean XYZ, I meant XYA, and
Okay.
giving them and then they have the chance to clarify, and then like neither of you reacting until you both have like a firm grip on what,
What's actually being
yeah,
said, like, and
but
what's actually really
and
meant.
what the intentions were.
Yeah.
It,
Right. Okay. So then, oh, sorry. Go
I'm just
ahead.
gonna say, and we've all
Oh, you froze
story
again.
statements. um,
Mhm.
things like that.
Yeah. So what is one intimacy like that isn't talked about? So there, you said there's 13,
Hmm.
right? And so, we've heard of like the basic four: emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, right? But what are those even intimacies, or is like people think that that's actually intimacy and that's not it? Um, but what is one out of that list that's something that isn't the norm to what's discussed like online and those type of things that you have to dig deeper about?
So one of the ones that I like to talk about is creative intimacy. So how are you and your spouse creative together?
Elaborate.
So pre-kids, my son, I've been playing homeschool mom too much lately. So pre-kids,
Okay.
my husband and I used to do community theater together. And so
Mm,
more often than not, he would be the lighting director and I would act in the shows. So it was his job to
okay.
make me look good on stage. And
Oh,
we had a lot,
you're
just
freezing.
us or just us and like one or two other people, where because he light, if you don't do theater you don't really know, it's really hard for the lighting people to go and work on the lights when the actors are in the space rehearsing, because it's a lot of moving the ladder 2 inches, climbing up, adjusting the light, moving the ladder another 2 inches, climbing up, adjusting the light. And it's really hard to do that when other people are in the space. So lighting directors, lighting professionals will often work when there isn't other people in the space, because you have to um, be aware of where the shadows are going to fall, and if someone is standing in the wrong spot, then they're going to mess with the path of the light and blah blah blah.
Hmm.
So it was a lot of late nights of just the two of us, or one other person in the theater, with him going up and down the ladder, me up in the light booth adjusting the gauges, and us really creating this beautiful scene,
Mm.
um, and things like that. And so we don't, when we had our son, we had to step out of theater for a while. Our son is just now getting old enough that we could probably step back into it sometime soon. But something that we do for creative intimacy now,
Wait, you froze again.
or
Wait.
if we visit a new church or if we go to some sort of a concert, is we look at the lights and we talk about like how we would do the lighting differently if we were in charge of the lighting,
Mm.
right? And so like we're being creative together, we're dreaming together. And so if you wanted to do something far less dramatic than my husband and I are, go to the Dollar Tree. This is the perfect at-home Valentine's date night idea for you guys right now, if you're
Ooh, okay,
listening.
okay.
um,
Write this down
Yes.
and drop in the comments. I got it. That's what you need to say.
Go to the Dollar Tree and you're going to get some cheap canvases, paints, and paintbrushes. And then you come
Mhm.
home, set it all up, and you're going to go on YouTube. You're going to look up a painting tutorial, and you guys are going to do some very bad paintings together. Uh,
Amen.
and like that is you being creative together.
So that's a simple yet creative, fun, cheap,
Yep.
especially it's cost effective.
Yes.
So like going to Dollar Tree is definitely cost effective. So you don't have to worry about that. And then you create, whether good or bad, you are able to
And if you
look at each other and say you try something
Yes.
different,
And you
right?
can decide, like you can do like a Bob Ross landscape, right? And then laugh at how absurd they come out. Or one of my favorite creators on TikTok is, I think she's on Instagram under the same name, Andrea Nelson Art. She
Okay.
specializes in watercolors. And I've actually used her videos for homeschooling my son. That's how easy they
Mm.
are. So if you want something that you would have to work really hard to screw up, but you can actually hang on your wall when you're done, look at some of her videos because they are so simple. And there is not an artistic bone in my body. My creative stuff all comes into my video content, and like acting, like that is my I am not a like pick up a paintbrush art person.
Right.
I'm very bad at it.
Right.
I can do her stuff and it looks decent. So if you want
Awesome.
something that you can hang on your wall, Andrea Nelson art is one to look at.
So does it take how many types of intimacy when you're trying to reignite your relationship or trying to rekindle that fire? Do you feel like that it takes for it to begin to spark? Like, so is it like, do you need to just want to do one new thing, or do you feel like there is like a combination of things that, like you were talking about, like the 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, or you know what I'm
That was
saying? Like,
the 1 2 3 5 7 was a you need to go on YouTube after this and look up Friends, Monica, the numbers, and watch that scene. It's hilarious. That's what that was a reference to.
I will.
That
I'll look it
wasn't
up.
so, but the intimacies, a healthy marriage needs all of the different intimacies. And
Mm,
you need all of them. There isn't like a like here's this formula to like fix your sex life, right? It is, you need all of the intimacies for a truly healthy marriage. And you can't
gotcha.
rely on any one of them to try and hold up the marriage.
Mm,
Some
wow.
of them, um, some of them certainly might feel like they have a bigger impact. Like intellectual intimacy is all about like either learning something together or understanding why they think the way that they do. And that can come into play with
Mm,
something like politics. So if you guys disagree on politics, that would fall under the intellectual intimacy banner. And so that can bring conflict, but that's an opportunity to work on your conflict intimacy, because conflict
mm.
is actually,
There's conflict in
yes,
intimacy?
yeah, there is. And so you need all of them in healthy ways to
Hmm.
to have a healthy marriage.
Wow. Wow. I think I'm going to have to look up these
You can
conflict intimacy.
you can get my 31 days of intimacy on my website. It talks all about all the different intimacies.
Plugged in. Let's get it right there now.
I mean, if you want to learn about them.
Yeah, I know I do. I do, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to put a description for other people too, because I would have never thought conflict intimacy would be a thing, but it makes sense because there are people who like to start conflict and then that, anyways, all right. Okay, I'm starting to see there's a thing here. There's a thing going on here. My brain is going, you know, um interesting. Conflict intimacy. That has that's new to me. So, of course I'm going to be looking it up. I have a couple other questions. Oh, perfect. All right, you guys, give me 1 second. I'm gonna help you out here. And I need to put it in this area, one other area. Hold on, you guys. Okay. Copy that link if you're in Instagram, and you can go right on over, put it in your bar, click it, and you can find it. If you are on Facebook and YouTube, you should be able to just click on the link to get the free ebook. It's like free download, right? If you're talking, I can't hear you.
Oh, there we go. I think I'm unfrozen now.
Okay. And so here's my other question. It says many people feel stuck waiting for their partner to change. How do you empower individuals to take charge of their happiness and transformation?
If you live your life waiting for your spouse to change, you are never going to be happy. And
Oh.
I so there's conflict here, right? So the Bible tells us that we
Mhm.
are to be as iron sharpening iron, and that we are
Okay.
to spur each other on to greatness, right? And
Okay.
so there is
Right.
that. But there is also a time where it gets to a level where you need to take a hard look at the marriage and figure out, is this safe? Is this healthy? Are there things happening that long term make this an unsafe marriage?
Mm.
I don't
Okay.
want, and so I am never, it, so much, there's so much bad advice in the church of, well, you just need to pray harder, right?
Yeah.
And
But
that's
there's never a solution or advice given. So,
and that's what and I'm never going to do that. Like I when I tell you to pray and I say pray about all things, I mean all things. I mean pray for your gag reflex, but and I mean pray for them to be the best version of them that they can be. But I
mhm.
also am not telling you to pray and stay in an unsafe situation. So
Gotcha.
if you feel stuck waiting for your partner to change, the first thing I want to know is, are you safe? Is it a safe situation?
Mm.
And
That's that's a good question because a lot of times people aren't asked that. It's kind of like remember you it's like your husband, you don't own your husband basically owns you and whatever he asks you should do because you should need to submit. And I'm not saying let's
yep.
because that'll be a whole like 2 other hours for you to talk. Don't say don't
She's like, don't start. No, see,
I was like don't
we
I because
don't
that's a trigger.
we don't pray harder and we don't submit harder and hope a bad man will change.
Mm. So first we really need to identify is if the man that we have is a good man, a godly man,
A
right? And
safe
so
man.
safe man. Okay, so specifically a safe
I
man.
see far too many women tell me, well, he's addicted to pornography and he makes me do all these things in bed, but he's such a good dad. He's a good man.
Mm,
He is not a good man, Savannah. Okay, a good man is not addicted to pornography and making you reenact it in his bed. That's not a good man. So we're not
mm,
using good is such a churchified term that it has become absolutely useless.
right.
So we're talking about safe men. Is he a safe man? Is she a safe woman? Because
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
just men who are bad. Is she a safe woman?
Mm. That's okay. That's so deep. Like we could go so far into that, and I know like I have a okay. So I have 3 Valentine's Day questions. No, because we could go hours with this, right? Like
It's
we
a
could
big
really do
one.
that, and but we're
And
yeah we're not gonna
I just want to say, if that question really struck something inside of you, please go look up Dr. Andrew J. Bauman. He has a book coming
okay.
out called Safe Church. He works with men with pornography addictions primarily, but he has so much good information about what a safe partner is. And so, if you
Mm,
are starting to suspect that your spouse is not a safe person, please go look at his work. He does an even better
right.
job than I do talking about that.
This is interesting because sometimes I think like somebody could be safe in the beginning and then be not safe somewhere in there, right? Because sometimes addictions happen midway through and you don't know what triggered it or what re-triggered it, right? Because
Or
somebody could have
how
had
they hid it for so long.
come on now, because like I mean, okay, all right. So I have
Marriage,
so that
marriage is not a cure for addiction. Marriage is not a cure for lust.
okay, all right. We're gonna have to just do an episode about that, okay? Because I'm gonna be honest, like years and years ago, I thought it was because it says remember there's that part like
If you burn,
if you something about burning.
it's better
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get
yeah,
married
yeah,
than
yeah,
burn with
yeah.
passion. Yeah. it's almost
That's what I
it's
thought.
almost like the Bible was written in an ancient language and was translated into modern English. And so we have a really hard time understanding what it's trying to tell us because we're looking at modern English language with modern American ideas and putting that over top of an ancient text.
Yeah, it's so funny
Crazy
though
how that
because I was
doesn't
like,
work.
it doesn't because if we want to be honest, really honest, before we move on to the Valentine's Day questions for married couples and stuff like that, a lot of times people got married because they didn't want to burn with lust, right? Like they didn't necessarily get married because it was even sometimes the right partner for them, right? I'm just being honest. Like, you meet somebody, you are desiring them, and it's like, okay, well, I can't be with you until we get married. And so they get married, and that probably really wasn't your person. But I mean, it's just funny how the church kind of had set us up for
Failure?
anyway. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's why I always think it's so funny when people say, when they get a divorce, like, we grew apart. I'm like, you're gonna grow at different rates. So it's okay. So you guys just never really liked each other. Is that what you're saying?
Or
You have to expect somebody to.
so there's this amazing quote by Dr. Bauman. Let me see if I can find it really quick. He says
Okay.
that you cannot look to sex to fulfill all of your unmet longings. Um,
Mm,
and I think too many using sex, here it is. Sex is not to be used solely as a means of connection, but a test of what connection is already built and present within the relationship. We must stop using sex inappropriately to meet our unmet longings and desires. All right. Too many people want to use sex and therefore marriage as a way to fulfill their unmet longings and desires.
mm.
I saw a quote today on a reel where it was talking about the disparity in mental load in marriages, that far too many men want the wife and kids, but they don't want to be a husband and a father.
What? Somebody wrote about
Hmm.
that?
Yep.
Oh, that's a whole nother conversation. I didn't know somebody was going to point that out, but it's true because I know men who's married gotten married because of the look, like
Yeah.
the yeah. Some men have gotten
There's
married just because they know that.
someone very
Yeah, it's
close to
so.
me who has identified that the marriage happened because that's what he felt he was supposed to do. He was supposed to get married and have
Mm,
kids, but he has no real interest in being a husband or a father. And they're dealing with the consequences of that.
wow, wow. That's really sad to hear, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just really.
So, going back to what you were saying, did they really grow apart, or were you trying to use marriage to complete your checklist? Were you trying to use marriage to fulfill your unmet longings and desires? Just like I said at the
Mm,
beginning, you can't put that much pressure on sex. Sex does not create and maintain the intimacy in your marriage. Sex is the celebration of intimacy you've established before you've ever reached the bedroom. And the
wow.
marriage is going to fall apart if you're trying to use it to do all of the work that you yourself are supposed to be doing.
Mm. People don't like to do work though. That's
Yep.
not. We don't live in that. Okay. All right. So we have three. We have three Valentine's Day questions that we're gonna use to close. I'm excited though, and I didn't put them up there. These are the ones that I have in my little notepad. So you ready?
Yes.
Okay. With Valentine's Day approaching, how can couples make it more meaningful beyond just gifts and dinner?
Oh, I have this. You give them the gift that will last all year long. I just so
What is it?
I just released a sex journal. Okay, so this is an interactive journal for couples. It has over 100 prompts
Oh wow.
in it. And the way that it works is you guys pick a prompt, and there is space for one of you to answer on top, one of you to answer on bottom, a space
Okay.
for the date.
Okay.
And this helps you develop your sexual and non sexual intimacy through the whole year. So something that
Mm.
you give them for Valentine's Day, and then they're gonna like, as you're working through it, it's gonna last, and you're gonna be reminded of, oh, we got this for Valentine's Day, right? So some
Right.
of the prompts are things like, I'd prefer to take this position off the table in the future because it makes me feel, or I want to have
Mm.
sex in this unconventional location.
Oh, so like, oh, so it's almost like a conversation starter at the same time too,
Yep.
right?
And so you can use it as conversation starters, but you can also use it as a journal, because a lot of people feel uncomfortable verbally discussing sex. I'm not going to name any names, Jamie, but some of us got real quiet.
Ah.
Some of us got real quiet at certain points during this conversation this evening. So some of us struggle with verbalizing when it comes to
You
sex.
came for me.
And
I like
so
you. You came for my soul just now.
and so if you choose, you can verbally discuss it or you can write it out, because a lot of people feel more comfortable writing these things out. And I'm sorry, but when we're live, I have to say the things like orgasm, clit, and pray against your gag reflex. I can't write that out for you.
I think you like making me go like this. I think you do. I think
I'm, I'm, I'm like, maybe if I say it enough, she'll get desensitized and like her brain will stop glitching.
it's not. It's not. Okay. All right. All right. So send me the link for that.
Yes, I'll do that right now.
Um. Okay. So then the next question is, oh, I was thinking too, like, so they could write in the journal, like, so you write in the, and then you can read your partners, and your partners can read yours,
Yes.
right? And that is
And
okay.
then
So that's the.
yeah, that's the whole thing. And then the other great thing about this is it has a little space for the date here. So you guys can come back in a year or two and look back to see how your answers have changed, right? So you can look
Mm,
back
to see.
in 2 years and say, okay, so February 14th, 2025, I said the last time I felt sexually powerful was, and compare that to February 14th, 2026.
What is, I mean, see, like, okay, I've got questions, but I can't ask them. I was like, what is sexually powerful? I don't even think that I've ever, like, is there like a definition for that?
How, the definition for that is going to vary widely depending on what makes you feel sexually powerful. Is it
Oh, oh, I think it just clicked in my mind. Never mind, girl. I got it.
it's not just about kink. It's not just about kink. It could look, it could absolutely be about kink, but it could be, I felt powerful when we mastered this position that we've tried before and haven't been able to make it work.
Mm,
Or I
interesting.
felt powerful when I wore this dress I've never worn before and made his brain glitch.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Interesting.
there's a lot of ways to feel sexually powerful.
Mm, that's good right there.
Such
That's
a
good.
great prompt.
Okay.
That's why that's such a great prompt. When was the last time you, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be in relation to your spouse. Maybe it's just you got a new dress and you felt power, like the dress made you feel powerful just in and of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, so now I'm identifying, okay? Like I'm identifying, right?
Yes. Right? And so that's why that's like
Okay.
such a great prompt.
It is. That's a good one. Cuz then it also helps you, cuz you know how that, what works for you when it comes to that, but sometimes you don't know what makes your partners feel that way, right?
Mhm.
And so is
Or
Mm,
maybe some of us don't know what makes ourselves feel that way, Jamie.
that's true. Interesting. Hey, you got my brain is like like that's what's going on over here. Um, you do. You got me like, hmm, interesting. This is interesting. You glitched.
Yeah.
Well, you glitched. You're
Yes.
frozen.
Okay, I'm
Okay.
back.
All right. So my next question, what's your advice for keeping the spark alive long term, though? Not just on special occasions, but in everyday life. Like you gave us the learning the intimacy part, but is there something else? Like if people are not touching on the intimacy and they're not really, and I know you said that you have to do all of that to make it happen, but is there something else that
So if we're
maybe
talking about like keeping a sexual spark alive, um,
mhm.
I think the first thing that feels like, especially to women, a loaded question because it feels like it's become one more thing on her emotional labor checklist, right? And so
Oh.
I think the first thing that we need to acknowledge is every season of your life has valleys and mountaintops. And to
Mhm.
think that your sex life is never going to go through a valley season is to live in delusion because
Wow.
I've been married for over 20 years. I
Yeah.
am a sex and intimacy coach. This is my profession. I have companies and brands send me literal boxes upon boxes upon boxes of sex toys on a regular basis. It has gotten to the point where I have to give them away to my friends because I am overrun with toys that I have no storage for in this house. And so you would think that like we have this amazing sex life all the time. And that's not true because that's not
Mm.
realistic because we are human.
Okay.
We have
I'm glad you said that.
we have mountaintops and we have valley seasons.
Mhm.
Sometimes the mountaintops get jump started by a shipment from a brand, but sometimes
Mhm.
I get a box of $500 worth of things and we both go, meh, I'd rather go watch
Eh.
Outlander, right? Because it is completely normal for the spark. What is the spark anyway? Like that is such a made, made up
Ooh.
thing. What is it? It's made up. Nobody, you can't define it. Nobody can define it, right? It is okay if you recognize, you know what, we're in a valley season. We're neither one of us is that interested in sex right now. It will change. Now, there are times where it is appropriate to be concerned, right?
Yeah. You froze.
Posting for a little too long. I think I glitched. Am I glitching?
You're
Okay.
back.
You know,
You're back now.
there's a point where expressing concern is okay to say, you know, I feel disconnected both in and out of the bedroom. It's been going on for a few
Mm.
months. You know, is there something that we should do? Should we make a little more effort? Let's look at the 13 intimacies and figure out where we can exert a little more effort. But to live in this place of how do you keep the spark alive? Girl, ain't nobody got time for that. Like, live in your season. Make effort when you feel like,
You-
look, I am,
I'm
I have a chronic illness. I am technically disabled. I homeschool a 10-year-old with special needs. My husband is a truck driver who does not live in my house 24/7. Sometimes he goes out on longer runs and we don't see him for a few days. Okay. And my son has a million um, extracurricular activities, and I have a whole business that relies on my emotional and physical labor. And you know,
right.
and sometimes I just am too tired. Sometimes I just want to go to bed. Okay, and that's
And yeah,
okay,
and that's okay.
and that's okay because you know what? I'm gonna snuggle up next to my husband. we're gonna play a board game tomorrow night. We'll connect outside the bedroom, and in the next day or two, one of us will muster up the energy to say, "Hey, you want to have sex tonight?" And we will be fine.
We'll muster up the energy.
Because
I understood that.
that's what because everybody wants to pretend like sex is this Hollywood fantasy, and it's not real.
Well, that's what they've seen though, and
Real
so
midnight
like
sex.
you get what I'm saying?
No, I know, and that's why I'm out here trying to normalize the fact that after 21 years, sometimes it's candlelights and lingerie, and sometimes it is looking over at him from the couch and going, "Do you want to go have sex, or do you want to watch another episode? What do you want to do?" Because that's normal. That's normal.
Right. Right. And like having that as normal is okay.
Yes.
And I think right. And people so like, they it's spark and chemistry and all of this thing and I just lost the fire and I'm like, I mean, if you're looking for that every day, every other day, every week, it's kind of like you are delusional. And so I'm glad that you touched on that because it wasn't a question I was trying to, but I think that the movies, right? The movies are short, an hour and 2 hour movies. Um, Corn has done it too, right? It has set unrealistic expectations for people in their relationships. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like
for
I
sure.
mean, it does. And so, my last question for you for this evening. Hold on. I had to pull it up another way because I lost it, of course. If somebody watching feels disconnected from their partner tonight, right? Like
Mhm.
if they are watching you and they're like, okay, I've listened to the 13 in what you said 15 or 13
13.
intimacies. 13 intimacies. They've clicked on the link, they've downloaded it, they ordered your book, but they want something right now. Like I mean, or want to be able to change something right now. How do they start that change tonight?
So I just in the last few days posted two different videos about
Okay.
praying against your gag reflex, praying for the needs of your youth. That's how you change it tonight is you go on whatever social platform you want, you find the video I posted this evening, you show them the video and you say, "Okay, you want to pray with me?" I'm going to pray.
Yeah, because like I'm still flabbergasted that that is a part.
Right,
Ah,
but what's
but
gonna okay, so first of all, what's gonna happen? You guys are going to connect because you're laughing at how ridiculous the lady in her cardigan is, right?
well,
Talking about
it's not ridiculous. I'm
no,
just I
not
mean,
ridiculous in a negative way, ridiculous in
yeah, yeah,
a,
yeah.
humorous way.
Like unconventional.
Yes.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
unconventional.
exact not in a bad way, in a like, "Oh my god, like, she
Hmm.
really said that. She really is serious."
She
Like,
really said
yeah.
it,
So,
and
like,
now she has me really thinking.
yeah. And so you guys are gonna laugh at me, and that's
Hmm.
fine. That's like I know I do it on purpose to get you guys laughing. All right. So you guys are gonna to
Oh, you
pray for some
froze
of those
again.
things, and then you're gonna laugh some more. And then you're gonna need to have to try it to see if the prayer worked. Did your gag reflex actually improve after praying that?
Angela.
I don't know. How else are you gonna test it? Suck on a banana? Like, you gotta test it.
I'm holding my heart. You get what I'm saying? Like you have you have like wowed me all night. I am going to go like when I go like get off with you, I'm gonna lay down in the bed and I'm gonna be like, I wasn't ready. Like so normally I'm the person that does what you're doing. And so I've never had this happen before where I'm like,
I have a lot more
you
words
have
in my vocabulary that I can just start throwing out there.
no, don't do that. I'm not ready. It'll take a few more sessions. It'll take a few more sessions for me. Let me ask a question. This is just my last question. How many sessions does it normally take for somebody's comfort level to change? What have you seen? Like, what's the average when you're like coaching somebody or like, walking them through this new level of comfort? How long does it normally take for them to be like, okay, I think I could
I
not be shamed?
think it really depends on the client, what they're seeing me for. I
Hmm.
typically, as far as like for them to feel comfortable like with me and saying all of the things and putting all the things out there, usually by about the third session is when they're like, okay, so she's not going to freak out if I, say a curse word. She's not going to freak out if I like say, oh, well, we had sex, instead of we were intimate. Like so many people in sessions with me want to talk around things, and I'm like, stop it. I need clarity. I need precise language. I need to know exactly who put what where and why. Okay? I need to like if depending on what you're coming like depending on what you're wanting to like come to me for, right? Um
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. I just
the funniest is when
who the
the,
grace.
the funniest is when I'm doing premarital sessions with brides
Mhm.
who are coming for like education because they didn't get education from
Mhm.
their parents. And so I have scientific models that I break out and I'm like, okay, well, look, this here is your clit, this here is your urethra, this is your vulva, this is your vaginal canal. And the poor girls just are they're like, I what but words, you're saying words. And I'm like, this is what you're paying me for, to tell you the words. So,
Right, because you're about to get married and you like have no clue what. That is so
right,
crazy.
because nobody's parents are telling them that the average man only takes 5.4 minutes to orgasm, usually through a poking sort of motion, whereas a woman needs 14 to 20 minutes of direct clitoral stimulation, and she is not going to receive that stimulation through penetrative activities. Right? Nobody's parents
So basically,
are telling them that. So
no.
I have to be the one
Mm.
to explain to her that he needs you, one of you has to touch your clit, and you're going to have to show him how, probably.
You're so blunt. It is insane. Oh, you froze
Oh,
again, but you are so blunt. So you do you do premarital like counseling for people that are like virgin and have never done anything
yes.
and like need to know what to do. This is like wow.
So
Wow.
anything sex or intimacy related, I cover for coaching. Um,
Mhm.
there's very few like yeah. Sometimes I'll tell you, look, you need a licensed clinical therapist, you don't need coaching. But generally, it for the most part, if it's
What
sex or intimacy related, whether that is, premarital where they have no sex education, they don't know how it works, they literally need an anatomy lesson. I do that. Um, I
yeah.
have a couple that I'm working with where they're newlyweds and she's never had an orgasm and she came to me, she's like, I just don't like sex. I'm like, well, no, duh. If you aren't orgasming, no one like it's no wonder you don't want to have sex. I wouldn't want to.
Was he a virgin too at the same time?
There's a lot of factors going into what's happening with them, but and I'm like, okay, well, do you know how? And she's like, I don't think I've ever done it. And I'm like, okay, so we're gonna start with teaching you literally how to orgasm, and we're gonna work up from
Mm,
there. Okay, we're gonna work up from
that is
there.
so crazy.
Um,
This is that is interesting.
right. So, and then I've worked with couples who are wanting to spice things up, right? They want to start incorporating different activities, different toys, and going over what their options are, how to do things safely, what they might be interested in purchasing. I do that. And then I work with couples who come, the most frequent type of coaching I do is couples who are experiencing a difference in libido. You typically he wants it more often than she does, And usually solving for that is going back to the 13 types of intimacy, because remember, sex is supposed to be the celebration of intimacy you've established before you've ever reached the
Mhm.
bedroom. And once you have something to celebrate, the sex starts flowing pretty naturally. So creating customized plans for couples so that the sex can start flowing more naturally is a large part of what I do.
Nice. Okay. All right. So, if you can leave one bit of advice for married couples, married Christian couples, what would that be? And then tell them how they can reach you and all that good stuff, because we like this went by way faster than I thought it would. And like there's certain things where we're definitely gonna have to do this again, because I have other questions. Like I have other topics that I think are phenomenal. Like the one where it's like I didn't want to do it, but I married, and it's kind of like he forced me. Like that, those type of things. I know that but I do feel like we
Oh,
need to
yeah.
talk about them, because I've heard that those type of things too, and it's kind of like how.
Yeah,
Anyways,
obligation sex is the
so
whole thing. So one piece of advice, go have good sex. And you can find me. I am the Christian Sexpert across all socials, and my website is thechristiansexpert.com.
oh my gosh. Okay. All her information is in the description. You have the links to her book and to her download. If you haven't clicked that yet, or put it or copied and pasted it, you need to, because if you don't need it now, you're going to need it later. Okay? And so I suggest that you get it now and save it, and then like utilize it when you're allowed to. That's for my single people. That's my single people. And so we thank you for tuning in. We look forward to doing this again. Make sure you drop any questions that you have in the comments. If you don't want to drop them in the comments, remember, she is definitely a safe space. You can email her any type of question that you want, or schedule a coaching call or interview, right? Do you do like discovery calls or
Hmm.
something like that
Yep,
too?
you can book all of that on
Yep,
my website,
on her website. And so tell them the website really quick.
thechristiansexpert.com.
All right. Don't forget to check her out, because I'm going to, but this has been so much fun to me, because I have been so uncomfortable the entire time. And so that's good, because I needed to in order to change and grow, right, you have to be uncomfortable sometimes. And
Exactly.
so uncomfortable leads to comfort. All right, you guys, thank you for tuning in. Tell them bye.
Go have good sex.